Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on implementing high availability solutions with Windows Server 2019. We are in section 5 of the course, and in this video we are going to discuss about configuring and optimizing cluster shared volumes. So let's get on to the lab and get started. Now, before I even get into configuring cluster shared volumes, I just want to show you real quick what amendments I've done so far, because apparently I've ran into some issues with storage spaces direct here and the storage pool in my lab environment. And for you guys who are following along, I want to show you exactly what to do if you come across the same issues, so not to get stuck. First of all, in failover manager here, if you have noticed in the previous video, my cluster pool 1 was in the size of 11.7 terabytes, which is not exactly what we're looking for, because if you remember, we had 24 disks in the size of 1 terabyte per disks. So let me quickly just bring up the PowerShell ISE here to show you what I've done, because I have basically deleted the pool and manually recreated. So first of all, you need to run this commandlet. So don't worry about memorizing this, because I will include this as resource files in this section and in this video. So real quick, get the storage pool. The friendly name of the storage pool was s2d on cluster, s2d cluster, and remove the storage pool. Then get any virtual disks and remove any virtual disks. You might need to run this commandlet before running the get storage pool. After this, you need to disable the cluster S2D. This operation is very quick. It will only take a few minutes. After you disable S2D, the thing you want to do is run this script here, the clean disks.ps1. Basically, what this script does is it goes again on each of the servers, S2D1, S2D2, S2D3, and S2D4. It gets all the disks except the system disk, the computer operating system disk, and it removes, as you can see here, it removes the OM, it clears the disk, and it resets the disk. And basically, after you run the script and you go back to commandlets here that you need to run, when you do, and bear in mind this needs to be done, so this commandlet need to be done on one of the cluster nodes, and this from the management workstation. So when you do invoke command and get disk format table, you should be seeing the disks in the exact state as we did in the beginning of the previous video. So every SATA disk should be raw, not formatted in any way. Okay, then I included this here twice, so let me just delete it. So after this, you need to enable S2D cluster, but this time we need to specify some parameters. So the parameters are cache mode is disabled, auto config is 0. This basically means that we don't want storage spaces direct to automatically configure our storage pool, and that is because it won't pick up the disks correctly, and to skip the eligibility checks. After this is done, you just need to run this commandlet. So new storage pool, this is where we manually create our storage pool. We give it a friendly name of S2D and provision a default type, get the physical disks again, and create the pool. After you've created the pool, you run the last commandlet here, and what this basically does is gets all those disks that are in an unspecified media type that storage spaces direct is not able to see properly, and converts them to type HDD, so hard disk. Okay, again, don't worry about memorizing this. I will add them as resource files. After you've done all of that properly, you should have your cluster pool 1 here in the size of roughly 24 terabytes in cluster manager. Now, what we need to do, we have the pool, we need to carve out the LUN, the virtual disk, and the volume to use in cluster manager. So let's go to server manager, and if we go under storage pool here, we can find our S2D cluster. This one is S2D because I called it that when manually configuring it. So now we need to right click on our S2D cluster or just use this create virtual disk here beneath, either way, and let's create our virtual disk. First of all, we need to give it a name. I'm going to call it S2D-LUN1 just for consistency as we did with our previous cluster. And what's different here than in the previous video where we created a virtual disk is that here we are going to be presented with the two tiers I was talking about, the performance tier and the capacity tier. Now, you can size this depending on the needs, on what you want to do with your cluster, because if you are going to run virtual machines, you are going to give a size on the performance tier depending on how many virtual machines you would run. If you would run just data, pure and simple, old data, like storing files, archiving data, you would give more size to the capacity tier. In our case here, I am going to give 100 gigabytes to the performance tier and 500 gigabytes to the capacity tier. Of course, you can size this in whichever way you think it fits your environment best. I'm going to click on Nest. I received the confirmation window, and let's click on Create to create this new virtual disk. And once this is finished, we need, of course, to go on to the next step where we'll create a volume on this disk so we can present it to our cluster. So if you leave this box ticked here to create a volume when the wizard finished, it will just start up the new volume creation wizard. So I'm going to click on next. I want to create it on S2D cluster and on this S2D LAN1, which I've just created here. Click on next, leave the volume size with the default. Let's click on next. I am going to assign the drive letter of E in this case for our volume. And let's give it a label exactly like the virtual disk. So S2D LUN1. And as you can see here, again, one difference is that the file system will be REFS, because when you create a virtual disk on an S2D storage pool, it assumes that you are going to run either virtual machines, either application data like SQL, for example. Let me click on next. I don't want data duplication enabled just yet. Next, and let's create the volume. Once the volume is created, we should be automatically seeing the disk and cluster manager. So that's complete. Let's bring up the cluster manager here again. And if we go to disks, we have the new virtual disk that we've created available. Now, in order to use basically this virtual disk, we need to get it out of the available storage state and present it to the cluster. And in this case, we want to make it a CSV, a cluster shared volume. Now, the benefit of having the cluster shared volumes is that if we have VMs running in the cluster and need, let's say, to fail over, we can fail over individual machines, for example, without having to fail over the entire set of available storage. So in order to make this disk a CSV, we just need to right click it and add it to cluster shared volumes. This will add the disk to cluster shared volumes, and that basically completes our process here. There's one more thing I want to show you. Let me just clear the screen here. And as you can see, I am on S2D1 with a PowerShell session. And that is, one thing that could happen is that the use of your storage pool may get unbalanced. And From time to time, it may need to be optimized. We have a commandlet in PowerShell which does basically that, and what it does is basically re-inventories the data and rebalances the pool. Now, first of all, let's get our storage pools so we can see the name of the pool. So as you can see, we are interested in our S2D pool right here. And the commandlet I am referring to is optimize storage pool. And I have a mistypo here, storage pool. And I have a mistypo here as well. So optimize storage pool and the name of the pool we want to optimize and hit enter. This will begin the process of basically rebalancing and reinventorying our storage pool. Fast forwarding things, the process has completed successfully. As you can see, I have no errors returned, and that actually completes our entire process of configuring and optimizing the storage pool and the cluster shared volumes. So I will see you guys in the next video where we'll be creating hyper VVMs in a hyper-converged S2D cluster. I hope this has been informative for you and thank you for watching.